Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Nishat and in this channel I make videos on books and all kind of bookish stuff. And in today's video you are watching a very quick review of Dracula by Bram Stoker. Now talking about this book came out in 1897 and it basically belongs to gothic horror genre. Now, talking about this very book, this book kind of influenced what we see today in the pop culture, what we see today in the movies and series concerned to vampires. Even though I'm not saying that this is the first book that was being written on vampires, but Bram Stoker's character basically, the character that he created in this book was like a trendsetter and it kind of influenced everything that we have today. The very character of Count Dracula is obviously very important when it comes to vampires, and Bram Stoker actually created the very base idea that there are these monsters who are blood sucking. They haunt people at night and they are immortals, and this is basically that we see today in the pop culture, in the movies and series. Now talking about the plot, this story is basically about a solicitor named Jonathan Harker who goes to Transylvania to help a man named Count Dracula, who is this very wealthy man, to help him in order to get a home for himself in London. Now, going there and after staying there for 2 to 3 days, Jonathan started seeing and experiencing things which are completely out of league, which are completely unnatural, uncanny, eerie, and something that can make any man insane. And eventually he realized that there's something wrong with this person named Count Dracula. He realized that in that very castle where he was staying, he was a prisoner and he was the only mortal man out there, because Count Dracula for himself was immortal. Rather, he was this monster, blood-sucking monster who is not present during the day and he haunts people during night. Now there is another plot attached to it, or rather I would say there are a number of plots attached to it, and would see that all of these characters which are present in the story rather than Jonathan Harker, they are in one way or another they are haunted by Count Dracula. And at the very end it would be very interesting to see how all of these characters would stand up against this evil spirit and whether they would be defeated or not. That's something that is present at the very end of the story. Now talking about other things in the story, talking about the narration and the pattern, we find that this book is very unique and different from other books because there is no particular narrator in this book. There's not just one narrator, rather there are a number of narrators, and in this book we find that there are journals, diaries and letter entries, and in all of these things we are reading the experiences of the characters when they encounter Dracula and all. Also, we come to know about the fact that back in 19th century there was this book of journaling and diary writing. Now, journal writing was basically writing your experiences in a book or copy, or maybe in letters or in papers. And this kind of makes the book, I guess, much more readable, much more enjoyable, because it seems so realistic. We are reading experiences of different people concerned to their fears, concerned to what they saw in the Count Dracula, what they experienced and how fearful it was. And it sometimes seems so realistic that we don't feel as if we are reading a fictitious story. And obviously, another thing that I would just love to say is the fact that it was much ahead of time, because none of Bram Stoker's contemporary writers actually thought of including this or creating a story out of this unique pattern of storytelling. And obviously, it was much ahead of time. And this is obviously one of the best points about this book. Now, this book has a lot of descriptions in it. It is just filled with descriptions. Like the descriptions that could have been finished in 2 to 3 paragraphs, Bram Stoker actually extended them to 3 to 4 pages, sometimes much more than that, and sometimes it makes the very narrative very boring. Nevertheless, all these descriptions are very interesting as far as the story is concerned, because it makes you highly informative about everything. In these descriptions, you get to learn about the history of Transylvania, how the Turks came, they invade Transylvania, how they strip off the land of the natives and leave them with nothing. You get to see nature through this description. And I must say that Bram Stoker just, created unique description of nature in this book. And there are other things to be followed as well. There are other things like the description of Count Dracula, obviously. Count Dracula's description is so, it's something that has the capability to scare any reader out there. Even the contemporary readers would feel very kind of, that fear in their heart whenever they're reading the description of Count Dracula. He's been described with this fangs coming out of his mouth, the 2 pointed teeth, this red eyes, this fearsome look in his face, tall stature, great body build. And there are other descriptions as well. The descriptions of his activities, of his actions. All of these things are very necessary for the story, because the readers are to imagine a monster or a creature who is has the very capability to kill you, to drain the life out of you. So obviously all of these descriptions are very good, very interesting. Not only that, we come to learn a lot of things. As I said, you are going to learn about the very society of 19th century through these descriptions. You are going to learn about history. You're going to learn about the myths related to vampires that have been talked about in this book. You're going to read about nature, as I said before. So obviously descriptions are important to make the story much more better. Now, talking about characterization, this book is filled with a number of characters, and every character out there is important in his or her own light. But the most important character out of all these characters is obviously the Dracula himself. Bram Stoker has presented Count Dracula as a monster only, a monster that has the capability to scare you, make you feel kind of abhorrence and hatred towards these characters, And it's very important to the plot because vampires were never meant to be these dashing and charming heroes, just like we see today in Vampire Diaries and in Twilight and other pop culture series and movies. They were never meant to be these creatures who could be loved or who could love, or these creatures with whom every girl out there would fall in love. At the same time, there won't be any good side to these characters, obviously. They are evil characters. They won't think twice before taking away your life. They would just kill you. And that's something that scares you, right? That's something that makes you feel hatred for them. And that's what it is. There's nothing good about them. The only conclusion for them is that they should be killed or they should be finished. They are a threat to mankind, they are a threat to humanity, society. And that's what I completely loved about this book is it's not flowery. It's not, showing something very great. It's not showing the characters as someone who has soft corner. Instead, they are portraying them as these monsters only. And that's quite different from what we see today. And the Count is the very central character of the book. He's the one on whom the entire story is being focused, but we don't see him much in the story. He is absent from the story after 70 to 80 pages, and he again comes to the screen at the very, very, very end of the story. This is because at the very last pages you would be able to see him even though he's not doing any action out there. And I don't like this part of the book, that why are you not including the story, including the very character of Count Dracula, he's the central character and his actions are so important. Nevertheless, he is the one who is controlling everything out there. Every event that occurs, every occurrences, every ominous occurrences, I would say, they're being controlled by him. So he's the one behind the curtains, controlling everything, even though he's not coming, in front of the screen. Nevertheless, I feel that he should have been present. His presence would have made the story much more enjoyable. I don't know about others, but for me, I guess that would have been better. Now, this book is gothic in every sense. It has castle, it has horror, it has passionate love, madness, everything. Also, another thing that I would just say is this darkness, this gloominess, this seriousness that is so intensifying, and it just doesn't decrease for a moment in the entire story. So from the very beginning to the end, you won't find that the seriousness is decreasing, that it is coming to its low level. In fact, it's increasing. The climax is increasing, the seriousness is increasing, and that's very seriousness is making, or it's like it has a very capability to make the readers to feel so engrossed into it. When I was reading this book, I was so engrossed in its seriousness, in its darkness, that I didn't just think of coming out of it. And that's what actually happens to every reader out there who have read this book, obviously. And that's about this book. It's the very true representation of gothic horror genre. So that's all for today, guys. Another thing that I would just like to add is this book is going to be an ideal read for all those people who are interested in knowing the very origins of vampires and all. even though this book is not a concrete source of information for vampires, and you would find it very contrary to other books, but obviously it is the very base of everything and every book that we read. So I would just ask my viewers, please give a try. Specifically, those horror lovers would absolutely love this book, and even if you're not a horror lover, you would love it, because it has all gothic elements as well, and everything that can make it an ideal read. So please go and give a try this book. Okay, so I hope you liked the video, guys, and if you did, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and please let me know in the comment section what books on vampires have you read, and if you have already read this book, then please let me know your favorite parts from this book. I would meet you in the next video. Till then, stay safe. Bye bye.